Welcome to Professor Skye's spam. Welcome to Professor Skye's spam channel. This is where I discuss anything that is not new music, like I do on my main channel, Professor Skye's Record Review. Check it out. So I have a whole series going here, where once a month I try to talk about a YouTuber who I think is important, and I try to do it from this perspective. I am an academic. I have a doctorate in 17th century French literature and society and philosophy. And as an academic, I can recognize that YouTube studies is going to be a thing in the future. I mean, this is where all the my tie is crooked. This is where all the discourse really is happening. The most interesting discourse that's happening politically, socially, culturally is happening on YouTube. So eventually there'll be people who have a backwards look. Now, I could, go ahead and make articles and write articles and try and get them published, but that would be sort of defeating what I think makes YouTube so interesting, how democratized this information is, and in particular, because I am a YouTuber of some minor success on my other channel and on this channel, I'm doing it. So I don't have a sort of outsider perspective of what a YouTuber is. I also have an insider perspective. So this is a guide for future academics into the world of YouTube as it was in 2022. In that way, I'm going to be studying a very difficult figure to study, jReg, J-R-E-G. If you don't know who he is a mainly political YouTuber who uses so much irony on so many levels that he has completely obfuscated his own ideology. He has a series of videos. His most famous are on the ideas of centrism and attacking centrism, also on political extremism, attacking political extremism. He has movies and videos about mental health, about irony itself. And most importantly, when he talks about himself, he calls himself a comedian and an entertainer first. I'm so interested in jReg because I think he's a very necessary figure in the online space. We live in a world of polemics and trolls and tribalism. And as I'm going to get to, I think he is a figure of humanism, which I think is the thing which will ultimately get us out of the current mess that we're in, the current mess that the algorithms on the internet are pushing us towards. I think jReg, through his usage of irony, might end up saving the world. I might be going a little too far. But in order to understand jReg, we need to, first of all, start with this concept of meta-irony, which I'm going to get to, and I'm going to discuss and even propose an alternate title for meta-irony. I'm going to discuss this irony, I'm going to talk about how he uses it, why it's important, and at the very end, if you're still around, I will tell you some hilariously embarrassing stories about a young Professor Skye. When I was just Skye, when I was 20, 21, 22. When I was, right now I'm a very even guy. I don't use a lot of satire on my channels. I don't use a lot of irony. But when I was growing up, I was the edgiest of edgy boys. Oh my God, did I love satire and irony and meta-irony. And I'm going to tell a story which frankly makes me look terrible. Like, you want to unsubscribe to me everywhere. Now, you should subscribe to this channel, my other channel, and you should do notifications for this channel, not for the other one. The other one I do 3 times, 4 times a week. This one, you might as well do notifications, because pretty soon I'm going to do a video about my favorite bad guy in a video game. It's not who you think. So, jReg. Now, my idea to do this video started about a month ago when my son asked me, my teenage son, asked me kind of sheepishly, hey Dad, what do you think of jReg? Now, he asked me this sheepishly because apparently jReg's fans are completely insufferable. Apparently his supporters are like Rick and Morty supporters, or that, like, to say you're a jReg supporter sort of means that you think that you're better than everybody and that you're smarter and that you figured things out. So I didn't know that. The same way that I reviewed Girl in Red and I didn't know that there was some kind of weird code behind Girl in Red, I don't care about the code behind jReg. I'd already known about his work a little bit because I spent a lot of time in political spaces on YouTube. I was sort of introduced to YouTube, and when it was a lot of cultural stuff, but then I learned a lot about H. Bomber Guy and ContraPoints and ThoughtSline and Andy Kaufman, and I'd sort of study those while at the same time spending a lot of time paying attention to what was happening on Fox News and Alex Jones, and really trying to engage with all these different kind of political debates as they exist online. So when I was confronted with jReg, I had this issue. I couldn't figure out his position. I couldn't suss it out. All these videos about centrism, and it wasn't clear if he was for or against. Are you a for or against? Which side are you, jReg? And I realized recently that puts me in the same category as a figure who I find very interesting, a figure who I am not for or against, although I am often for and often against, a political commentator named Vosh, who has an entire video about not understanding jReg. And I realized when I said I didn't understand jReg, I sounded just like Vosh. Someday I'll do a video on Vosh. I don't think I have the typical for or against mode. I watch many of his videos, but I also supported a creator on Patreon just because of how well she destroyed Vosh's faulty argumentation. That's neither here nor there. But what I realized was I didn't want to be on that side of it. I didn't want to just sit there and say, I don't get it, therefore I'm not going to study it. Because what I sussed out is that complexity, that lack of readability, is actually what makes him such a great and important YouTuber. And after my son talked to me for a couple minutes about what he likes about jReg, he told me that it was about irony and about the way that jReg defines my son's generation and the generation slightly before him through its irony. And that's why I think he's so important, as a way of political discussion and a discussion of the nature of irony, as used by millennials, zoomers, zillennials, zaloomers, and generation AAA. Whatever the hell we're going up to next, irony is a fundamental thing to understand. What's interesting is that the irony that's being used is perceived of as a creation of this generation, which I will describe and explain fairly soon. It's not. It's not a creation, but its prevalence and its importance is a hallmark of the young people these days. So in particular, I want to start off with what I believe to be jReg's best video on irony, in which he describes 3 different layers of irony. I will illustrate these by discussing, you know how there's pickles? Like there's dill pickles, which are good, and then there's like the bread and butter pickles or the sweet pickles, which are the grossest things that have ever existed, and then I hate them so much. So I'll use that as an example. Level 0 is the truth. No irony at all. I dislike sweet pickles. Level 1 is straight irony. I love sweet pickles. Okay? That's irony, is saying the opposite of what I believe. Now, where things get interesting is in level 2 irony. This is the level of irony that young people today exist on. Me growing up, my generation, Generation X, primarily stayed with level 1 straight irony. Like so much. Like sarcasm, just straight sarcasm. Sometimes mavericks like myself would go beyond, as I'll describe at the end of the channel, at the end of the video. But there's this second level. One, which he defines as post-irony, in which you return to sincerity, but it's expressed ironically. So I dislike sweet pickles, level 0. Level 2, post-irony, sweet pickles are worse than Hitler. Okay? Like I'm saying something and it's clear that I don't actually mean how much I'm saying. I don't actually think it's worse than Hitler, but I am also expressing my true feeling. Where things get interesting is in the other form of level 2 irony, meta-irony. And the reason this is so important is that where meta-irony exists is where the level 0 is not clear. This is where jReg exists, and this is where so much humor is on the internet. What is there? What is the truth? It is irony used to obfuscate the truth. Most irony is used to play with the truth. But this meta-irony that jReg is describing makes it unclear. So it'd be like if I said this. You know, sweet pickles, when used correctly, are great. Like in relish, or on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what I mean, buckaroo banzai? You know, my aunt used to call me sweet pickles, but that was before we put down our cat just for fun. Sweet pickles, sweet pickles. You know, I have a gamer tag on PlayStation Live. It's Pete Swickles. If I said that to you, what would you think was my opinion of sweet pickles? Like, why was that so specific? What did all that mean? What was that bit about my aunt putting down a cat just for fun? But peanut butter and jelly and relish, what is there? What is the actual truth? So when I made this video, I sort of wanted to do it in this sense, of meta-irony. Irony. That was unintentional. Meta-irony, which I think we might want to call quantum irony instead. Quantum, the quantum principles of light. It's a particle and a wave at the same time. So when you're speaking in meta-irony, you're telling the truth and you're lying at the same time, which obfuscates the truth. I gotta stop saying obfuscate, but I'm gonna keep saying it. You don't like it? Don't watch videos with dudes who wear glasses like this and a dope-ass three-piece suit on a Monday. Please tell me in the comments, on a scale of 1 to 1,000,000, how dope-ass is this suit? Ironically or not. So, I was thinking about making this video saying, okay, jReg is a good YouTuber, level 0. Level 1, jReg is a terrible YouTuber. Or level 0, post-irony, jReg is a trickster and a darn tootin' good one. Or meta-irony, jReg is such a great YouTuber, no one has ever done what he's doing. He not only challenges the status quo, but he forces you to obliterate the status quo. And I hope his voice is the defining voice of a generation, the generation of my children, because it is that important. What is the truth in what I just said? Now, he's an interesting guy because he does a lot of things that I don't like. He platformed a white supremacist last week. He did it ironically, though. He did it ironically, so it's okay, so it's not okay. He platformed someone who I consider to be an Anglophile Canadian bigot. He talks all the time about killing centrists. And it's unclear the people who watch what he talks about if they get the satire. It's the South Park problem. When I was growing up, nobody ever made, in my circle, I never heard a Jewish joke in my entire life. My kids hear them all the time. Part of the reason why is because of satirical Jewish jokes being spread through South Park, as an example. That didn't mean that anti-Semitism didn't exist when I was growing up. Obviously it did. But the jokes, the mainstreaming through satire is an issue. You never know what jReg actually believes. He did a Q&A in which he flipped a coin whether or not he would lie or tell the truth. But he kept it a secret from the audience. So you're literally watching him telling the truth or lying about personal questions. He just never wants you to know. And as I'm going to explain soon, that's what makes him so great. That's what makes him so important. Before I get to that, though, I want to talk about one of the things he says, which I can't tell if he's saying ironically or not, which is how much he emphasizes that this is about his generation, about young people today, okay? That's who this is for. He kind of attacks older generations by talking about how they don't get this form of meta-irony and that they didn't make it up and that they don't understand it. He basically claims it is millennial and Zoomers' inventions, with one small, important caveat. In that video, he mentions in passing Andy Kaufman. And here I'm going to spend some time with Andy Kaufman. I've been making my kids watch Andy Kaufman for the past couple of weeks. If you have not watched Andy Kaufman, you are severely lacking in your cultural. Just type Andy Kaufman in YouTube. Even if you misspell Kaufman, doesn't matter. Watch the first 5 videos that come up, it will blow your mind. Because Andy Kaufman is the king of anti-comedy in the same way that jReg is the king of anti-politics. He was somebody who in the 1970s basically invented alternative comedy in the way that it's practiced now. If you like Tim Heidecker, great, I do too. But it was Kaufman who started this kind of humor in which you don't know what the joke is. You don't know if he's joking. If you watch some of these videos, one time he has a setup to a joke. He says, I was in Japan. And then he never follows it. He never ends it. He would do this crazy, silly voice and then break into a perfect Elvis impersonation. He had a character called Tony Clifton who would insult his audience so much, he would make himself so unlikable, and he wouldn't even tell jokes, and he was needlessly cruel. He's such a jokester and a prankster that when he died in 1984, people didn't believe he actually died. They thought he was trolling. And I am telling you the truth when I tell you, I don't know if he's dead. I don't. He is funny enough that faking cancer and dying would be a perfect joke for him, which in a way is why he's such a great meta-ironist, because Andy Kaufman will always be alive and dead. He died ironically. He died meta-ironically. But it's in one area that I really think we need to understand Andy Kaufman in the context of jReg. And that was what essentially ended his career of wrestling women. He, with a straight face, wore a t-shirt that said, "Women's Wrestling Champion of the World." And he would challenge women to wrestle him on stage. And he would just scream sexist comments at them. And he would wrestle them, and he would beat them, and he would make fun of them. And he got into a real beef with an actual wrestler. And he would do this, and he would never break character. What's the joke? Is the joke that somebody would do this, or is the joke that he's actually doing it? Sexists who watch it go, "Oh my God, it's so true." Feminists who watch it say, "Oh my God, this is such clever satire." It doesn't help the fact that he also ended up sleeping with a lot of the women who he'd wrestle. It's not funny. It's not funny. None of it's funny. But that's the point. What's the intention? What is he saying about feminism in the 70s? This is the same decade in which Bobby Riggs, sexist tennis garbage, challenged women, saying that men are better than women at tennis, and he challenged the world champions even though he had retired in his 40s, and Billie Jean King beat him. Like, this kind of aggressive, like, realism was something that Andy Kaufman was attacking. And that's something that we need to attack right now. There's a lot of realism, which is actually just bigotry. So any kind of attacking that kind of certainty has political power. Because we don't know what Andy Kaufman was trying to say, I think he was saying more than if we knew what he was saying. If he said, "Just so you know, I think women are great. I don't think they all belong in the kitchen. I am doing this all as a joke, and no one should take me seriously." He forced you to just go like, I guess I get it. And that's what we do with jReg. Another quick example in music. Frank Zappa's early music was like mostly doo-wop music, but it was in the 60s, and he's like a totally well-trained musician, amazing classical composer at the same time as being a weird freak-out hippie, and he's doing all this weird doo-wop music that sounds like it's from the 50s. It both was a parody of, a satire of, destruction of doo-wop, but also he loved doo-wop music, and he wanted to keep it popular, and he thought that hippies were ignorant jerks who just wasted their time doing drugs. That doo-wop music exists in that same meta-ironic space. So it's not new what jReg is doing. Wait, what are you doing? But it's important for our current climate. It's more important now than it was when Zappa did it or when Kaufman did it. And that's because what jReg does that's so important. And I just pray to God that someday someone quotes me in an academic article, because this point is super good. I don't blow my own trumpet very often. Weird terminology. I don't blow my own trumpet. I'm going to say it twice. I don't blow my own trumpet very often. But what jReg does is he marries modern comedy with modern political discourse. And as I will explain, the nature of modern comedy is completely at odds with modern political discourse. You see, modern comedy is mostly in this meta-ironic space. Ask a young person what a meme is. Ask a teenager what a meme is. You're going to have an argument for like 20 minutes. Most important is the concept of what memes have become and their relationship to humor. I took this off of Know Your Meme. So this is the original kind of meme, okay? If I download a movie in Jamaica, am I a pirate of the Caribbean? Standard meme, standard joke. This is a modern meme, a picture of somebody who kind of looks like a character and the letter E. What's the joke? What is the joke? That is the modern comedy. That is the kind of humor that my son and his friends find funny. That second level of irony is where they live, where the zero level irony is unclear. We don't know what they think, what they're saying. We don't know. We don't have an idea. So, with that in mind, this second level is where they live. The importance of humor is that it doesn't have any importance. So the humor is saying nothing, intentionally saying nothing, while at the same time, the same mechanisms that use meme culture to keep people online and engaging with advertisers, that same meme culture, the humor means nothing, while the politics means everything. Sorry, I just need to make sure what time it is so I don't miss my next class. Oh, I have plenty of time. I'm doing this in my office hours. No one comes to visit me. Heidegger has office hours. I have office hours. These are my actual office hours. So, comedy means nothing. Politics means everything. The politics, as you know, are becoming more and more divisive. We are becoming more and more tribal because it is easier to sell to us when we are tribal. It's just easier. If we all have teams, if we all have categories, if we define ourselves by different categories, we are easier to sell to. And that's it. If you ever say to yourself, I am a this, and that, you've been duped. You've been duped, buddy. You've been duped. You've been duped by the corporations that are trying to sell you things because they know if you say you're this, they know how to sell to you to do that. In essence, this tribalism is anti-humanist because we are no longer seeing ourselves as human beings, but as members of a group. We are anarcho-communists. We are Trotskyites. We are certain kinds of left, certain kinds of right. So Kaufman, I think, was doing the same thing by making a feminist statement without it being clear what side he was standing on, making us question these things. What jReg is doing isn't really satire. You know, like, there's an expression, there's no there there. It comes from Gertrude Stein. She was talking about Oakland, weirdly enough, but like, there's no there there, like level zero. We don't know what's at level zero. But because we live in a world that's increasingly certain, politically and spiritually, it makes sense that the opposite of jReg would be someone like Vosh, a leftist with whom I agree on most topics. But when Vosh discusses why he doesn't like jReg, he says it's because it's not proper satire, which is true. It is not proper satire. Vosh is either not smart enough to get the joke, or he's pretending not to get it. Because he immediately follows in his criticism of jReg by saying, I know for a fact his Discord is packed with Nazis. Interesting idea. This is the thing. This certainty that Vosh has, that most leftists and rightists have on YouTube, is actually part of the problem. I don't think I'm a centrist. I think I'm probably on the left, but I come across as a centrist. And part of the reason why is my certainty of certain things. You know, that Rachel Maddow is just as dangerous as Tucker Carlson. Now I say that. This pisses off my mom. I mean, this pisses off my dad. And this really pisses off my wife a lot. Because obviously Rachel Maddow is right about most things. She's correct on most things she's saying. She's on the right side of history. If everybody listened to Rachel Maddow, the world would be a better place. But she knows how to keep us tribal. She appeals to our tribal instincts, to rage, to anger, to fear. She keeps us through the ad break the same way that Tucker Carlson does. So the tricky thing is, how do we attack her methods without attacking her beliefs? Tucker Carlson has bad methods and worse beliefs. Rachel Maddow has bad methods and good beliefs. The problem is that both are using tribalism to get us. They are using tribalism to keep us in line. And that's why we need people like jReg, who fundamentally is not anti-left, anti-right, anti-centrist. He is anti-tribalist, and therefore a great humanist, which is what I think is our way out of this mess. Our way out of this mess is to stop seeing each other as members of a tribe, an enemy tribe, and see each other as human beings who have the same fears and worries and all that, and work through, and we all know we're going to die, so how are we going to get through this together, and how are we going to come up with the best solution? And if somebody has a belief about how to make the world a better place, maybe they actually mean it genuinely. as a humanist, jReg's primary thing is attacking centrists. But by attacking centrists, he does it by mocking, by satirizing extremists. So the joke is that he wants to kill all centrists, and he does this by embodying different forms of extremists. He's not a centrist because he is attacking the center. He's not an extremist because he is attacking the extremists. What he's espousing, without saying it, is don't join. Don't join a team. Neither the centrists nor the anti-centrists are correct. It's amazing. Now, I will say one thing about age. I think jReg will be the same in 20 years as he is now. Because I think humanists in general, once you attain a humanist perspective, you can hold on to that. I will just say this to the extremists who are watching this. See me in 20 years. Seriously, bookmark this video. Come back to my comment section in 2042. Those of you who identify as communists and left-wing radicals, in 20 years, I'm sorry. You're gonna have a white-collar job. You're gonna pay taxes. You're gonna be a liberal. Hey, if there's somehow Nazis or right-wing extremists watching this video, first of all, go to hell. Second of all, okay. I'm sorry. In 20 years, you're gonna have a white-collar job and be a tax-paying conservative. Our hope with this extremist stuff on YouTube, and not all of it's extremist, right? Some of it's just like hard-held political beliefs, you know? But when I think about H-Bomber Guy or Sean or Thought Slime or these very far-left people, the hope that we should have is that they are making a better bourgeois pig. That should be our goal, a better bourgeois pig, because everybody is going to end up a bourgeois pig. The revolution will not come. And jReg is making fun of you because he knows that, and I'm making fun of you because I know that, because it's not coming. The revolution is not coming, neither on the left nor on the right. It's just not going to happen. Whether it should or shouldn't doesn't even matter. What we want is good bourgeois pigs like me. I'm a great bourgeois pig. I teach at a college. I teach at a public college, which does not represent my views. I do not represent their views. This is totally as an individual, everything I say here, you know? But, you know, I work for social justice. I vote against my own self-interest as a middle class, you know, as a middle class bourgeois pig. I try to vote for equality. I try to vote for social programs. I try to push forward. That's what we should be hoping for. One more little cultural plug here. This guy, Jacques Brel, is a Belgian singer who has a song which I think all leftists, rightists, and modern people should know about. It's called Les Bourgeois. And the song is about three kids who who get drunk, and they walk by this bar where there's these like bureaucrats, these bourgeois pigs, and they sing a song. The bourgeois, they are like pigs. The older they get, the stupider they are. And they sing like that. In the second verse, they see the bourgeois pigs again, and then they sing at them. The third verse, the three friends who had been screaming at the bourgeois pigs are themselves the bourgeois pigs. And young people see them and call them bourgeois pigs, and they go to the police to protect themselves. We all become les bourgeois. The question is, can we be a better bourgeois pig than our previous generations? And I have high hopes that when my children become bourgeois pigs like me, they will be more in tune with social justice, equality, closing the wealth gap, keeping borders more open, the things that actually matter to make a better world, stopping climate change. That's the hope. So back to jReg. Fundamentally, the reason why I think he's so important and so good is that we live in a time where we are incentivized to perpetuate certainty. He emphasizes, he deflates, and he destroys certainty. And he does it through this usage of meta-irony. He marries modern meta-ironical humor and uses it to deflate tribalistic certain politics. Isn't he great? Okay, you want my stories? You want my stories? I'm not gonna look very good in some of these. I used to be such a prankster and a liar. I used to joke around so much about what I believed and didn't believe that I had to come up with a secret code. Now, I used to say I swear to God because I was a Christian, but then that wasn't serious enough. Everyone says I swear to God. So I came up with a secret code in which I would say I am apple butter serious. If I said I am apple butter serious, that means that I would never, ever lie under apple butter serious. The reason that I would do that, like one time when I was in high school, I shot a rubber band and got it stuck in the ceiling. I told my friends and they didn't believe me. They wouldn't even look. So what I did was I wrote the word gullible with a marker, with a Sharpie, on my ceiling. I wrote the word gullible. And that's an old joke. You say, hey, I wrote the word gullible on the ceiling. People look up and nothing is there. Ha ha ha, you are gullible. But I actually wrote gullible on the ceiling. That's some second level irony right there. So they wouldn't look that gullible was written on the ceiling. Eventually, they'd look up and say, oh my God, you did write gullible on the ceiling. I'd say, it's true, I did, except I misspelled it. And they then have to sit there and say, do I look up again to see if he spelled it correctly or not? See, there's a part of being a trickster, part of that second level irony, which unfortunately is tied in with a feeling of superiority. Like I'm such a big brain smart boy that I'm smarter than you, and you'll never figure out the truth of what I actually feel. That's where the poisonous part of jReg's community comes from, is that feeling of like, I understand this. Those ignoramuses can't understand jokes on this high level. Truth of it was, I didn't know if I spelled gullible correctly. I didn't know if there was 1 or 2 L's. Frankly, I don't think I know right now. Probably 2, but I don't know. What was the level 0? Another thing I used to do was I used to tell people my favorite restaurant was California Pizza Kitchen. Now, mind you, I'm a French professor, so I've been to France, so I have a really good food culture, you know what I'm saying? But California Pizza Kitchen, like I didn't say my favorite restaurant was Cheesecake Factory, something which was ostensibly bad, or Applebee's. Nor did I say it was like McDonald's. It's feasible that someone's favorite restaurant could be California Pizza Kitchen. And I would tell people that. And I would never tell them the truth. And they'd be like, you're joking. Well, I guess actually it's not too bad. I mean, California Pizza Kitchen's fine. It's actually pretty good. But the joke is that it could have been my favorite restaurant. So to me, I still think that's a hilarious joke. I can't help it. I still think that is a funny idea. To joke about your favorite restaurant being a restaurant that could be your favorite restaurant, but isn't. You may notice on my main channels, I use an impact font for all my thumbnails. That's actually irony, because I'm an old guy, and I know that it makes young people laugh to see old people using the impact font. So I do it because it's funny. Now, finally, here's the story which I almost am not going to tell you. I was so interested in meta-irony when I was young, but I took it one step further. I asked, what's the relationship between like humor and an audience? See, I have 3 brothers, so we'd always make fun of each other. But you don't make fun of your brother when it's just the 2 of you. You need to have a 3rd brother or a 4th brother. I'd make fun of my friends, but not one-on-one. So I thought, what about humor for its own sake? What if my big brain comes up with a way to tell a joke in which there's not only no audience, but there's only a hostile audience? Some real Andy Kaufman style thinking. Listen to where it got me. I was with a girlfriend of mine, and it was the first time I met her family. I met her mom, her dad, and her brother. We decided to go out for a drive to Blockbuster Video to rent a movie. Her brother, me, and her. Just the 3 of us. So I was thinking about this idea, and as we were driving along, I just say, hey, and this is the first time I'd ever met her brother, by the way. First time. Yeah, everything's going cool. I'm having a nice time. It's really cool out here. One thing, though, Your mom's a slut. What? I don't know, just, your mom's a slut. Skye, what are you talking about? I don't know, I just think she's a slut. And I wouldn't go further. I didn't take the joke further than that. I just repeated that same word. Looking back at it now, I regret it. It's sexist terminology. I should have come up with a less sexist term. It was 1996, so I was a young idiot, okay? And they got angrier and angrier because obviously, like, why would I be joking? Why would I be joking when there's no benefit? This is siblings, and I'm calling both of their mom a slut. They got so mad at me that they pulled over in the middle of nowhere and just said, get out of the car. And at that point, I felt like I'd won. At that point, I felt like I'd won. So I explained the idea. I explained, what about humor where there is no audience? No, Walter, you're not wrong. You're just an a-hole. I totally regret that moment. I regret doing that. But it was an interesting lesson in this kind of humor. This level 2, like, what was the truth? Did I actually dislike their mom? No, she was awesome. She was totally kind, totally fun. A wonderful person. One of the nicest moms I've ever met. But telling that joke in that way made the truth unclear. All right. I told you it was an embarrassing story. So, I hope you like that small dissection of meta-irony, quantum irony, as I propose we call it, and jReg. And let me know in the comments, like what you think of this video. Because really, jReg just isn't. He's not very good. It's kind of pedestrian, boring stuff. It's like super easy to do what he does, and just like pretending, covering up what you're really meaning. It's lame. It's lazy. It's copying Kaufman, and it's. I mean, I get why people like it because they like to feel smart, but really, it's just not. There's the camera.